This is KRT, Critical Race Theory. It's not the one they teach in law school, but the one banned in public schools. Our story begins on July 17th, 1944, when something truly tragic happened. Imagine being at the munitions facility in Port Chicago, California, just 35 miles north of San Francisco. Now, this wasn't your regular work shift. Black Navy personnel units were given the job of loading munitions, and they were doing it around the clock. A dangerous job, no doubt. So picture the evening of July 17th. There's this brand new merchant ship called SS Quinault Victory, all set for its first voyage, waiting to be loaded. And not far away, the SS E.A. Bryan. Another ship just got back from its maiden voyage and was being loaded across the platform. These ships were packed with high explosive and incendiary bombs, depth charges, and ammunition, a staggering 4,606 tons of it. There were also 16 rail cars on the pier with an additional 429 tons of explosives. Around 320 black cargo handlers, crewmen, and sailors were working in the area. And then at 10:18 p.m., the night was torn apart by an explosion. Witnesses describe a blinding white flash followed by a deafening roar. It was like fireworks going berserk with smaller blasts lighting up the sky as they rose. And then, boom, the E.A. Bryan exploded, its contents detonating all at once. The shockwave was so strong that people felt it as far as Boulder City, Nevada. The aftermath left behind a scene of utter catastrophe. The E.A. Bryan and everything around the pier was obliterated. A colossal pillar of fire and smoke soared over 2 miles into the air above Port Chicago. The largest remnants of the 7,200-ton ship were no bigger than suitcases. The Quinault Victory was thrown into the air, its bow riding a 200-foot column with the mast still attached before crashing into the bay 500 feet away. Tragically, all 320 of the black sailors on duty that night lost their lives in an instant. Buildings, rail cars, everything near the pier was reduced to rubble, and Port Chicago's structures were severely damaged. Even in the base and town, people were thrown about and struck by flying glass and debris. The air was filled with sounds of smoldering metal and unexploded shells hitting the ground as far as 2 miles away. The shockwave was so strong that it caused damages across the bay in San Francisco, some 48 miles away. The aftermath sparked a major controversy. It was clear that inadequate training, dangerous conditions, and irresponsible labor practices played a role in this disaster. Many survivors believed their commanders didn't address these issues properly and decided to protest with a work stoppage. Although it was a peaceful protest, the Navy labeled it as a mutiny. In September 1944, 50 black Port Chicago sailors were charged with mutiny for refusing orders. They were found guilty at a court-martial in October. These events caught the attention of civil rights activist Thurgood Marshall, who was also the chief counsel of the NAACP. He strongly felt that the sailors had been unjustly charged with mutiny. He went a step further and called for a government's investigation into the Navy's practice of segregating black service members into support roles and the unsafe conditions they faced. His efforts contributed to an executive order that desegregated the military in 1948. Marshall and the NAACP found themselves deeply engaged in almost every one of these court-martial and mutiny cases, revealing a clear and consistent pattern. He observed, quote, "It's clear that most of these incidents stemmed from a breaking point reached by black soldiers due to unrelenting mistreatment. They had it with racism and disrespect." The prevailing attitude within military circles appears to label any collective expression of protest against unjust treatment among black soldiers as mutiny. What bound together the black sailors at Port Chicago, the Seabees at Camp Rousseau, the Tuskegee Airmen at Freeman Field, the Wax at Fort Devens, and numerous other troops was their unwavering aspiration to serve their nation without encountering discrimination or degradation. The sentiment was succinctly captured by the Chicago Defender, stating, quote, "The Negro is ready to lay down his life for his country, but he refuses to be enslaved." As a somber reminder of this tragedy, many of the sailors who lost their lives are now laid to rest at the Golden State National Cemetery. Port Chicago was just one of several cases of black military personnel protesting discriminatory treatment. At Camp Hood in Texas during the summer of 1944, Second Lieutenant Jackie Robinson faced a court-martial after refusing to relocate to a seat at the back of an Army bus. Yes, that Jackie Robinson. Robinson had taken a seat in the middle of the bus alongside the light-skinned wife of another black officer. As he recalled, quote, "The driver glanced into his rearview mirror and saw what he thought was a white woman talking with a black second lieutenant. He became visibly upset, stopped the bus, and came back to order me to move to the rear. I didn't even stop talking. I didn't even look at him. I had no intention of being intimidated into moving to the back of the bus." Despite being 3 years away from breaking Major League Baseball's color barrier, Robinson was already a prominent athlete, having excelled in 4 sports at UCLA. Knowing that news of his court-martial could attract national attention, he reached out to Truman Gibson, the chief civilian advisor to the Secretary of War, seeking guidance. Robinson wrote, quote, "I don't want any unfavorable publicity for myself or the Army, but I believe in fair play, and I feel I have to let someone in on the case." The court-martial trial proceeded swiftly, resulting in Robinson's acquittal by the Army. He was granted exemption from active military service and received an honorable discharge. Robinson's unit, the 761st Tank Battalion, known as the Black Panthers, later distinguished itself in the Battle of the Bulge as part of General George Patton's Third Army. So could it be that the Black Panthers from the 60s were named after these guys? So as you can see, racism was rampant in the U.S. military, but you would not know it by reading a public school history book. This has been Critical Race Theory. Please like and subscribe, leave a super thanks or buy me a coffee, and we'll see you next time.